And
now we're recording.
Okay, we'll call the
I'm going to video out while I'm eating.
okay, can you guys hear me?
No.
barely.
Really? Okay, let me try changing something. How about now?
You're still faint. It's better, but still faint.
Very
Okay.
faint.
Sorry, guys. Something just changed on me right now.
Say something else, Rob. Rob,
Yeah, can you hear me?
a little bit better.
A little bit better? Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's better.
Okay, good. Okay, we'll call the City of Olivet Planning and Community Design Commission meeting for May 21st to order. Jody, would you mind calling the roll? Is Jody by chance muted? Or did we lose Jody?
I think we lost Jody. And Rob, you're getting fainter.
Okay. Let me look at my.
Chairman, I'm not sure what happened.
I'm back.
Okay.
I got thrown out by my own doing, but
Okay, is this better for me or worse?
that works.
It works? Okay, okay, good. Okay. Okay, Jody, would you mind calling the roll?
Yeah, we'll try not to get disconnected again. Robert Jurgel,
Present.
Carol Wagner,
Present.
Jody Rich here, Bradley Abel,
Here.
Brian Lewis,
Present.
and Michael Saunders.
Here. Okay, let it also be known that Carlos Trejo is in attendance, as well as Jonathan Roper, as well as Council Liaison Missy Waldman. Okay, I think in some ways we're getting better. In some ways we still always have technical issues with these things. So audience members, please bear with us, as we kind of master this new style. Just as a little bit of instruction, we'll be going through these business items, and there'll be a report that's presented by either Carlos or Jonathan Roper to go over each agenda item. And then there'll be a time that we'll also ask for questions from the audience or participants. And if you could do those via the questions or the chat down below, that would be great. And on my machine, at least, there's a Q&A thing that you can click on. All right. Also, if anybody has any public comments that are not related to any of the items listed on the agenda, we'll go over those at the end of old business, and as well as, let me just check the agenda real quick. We'll go over that at the end of other business and list those. When people do put items on the question and answer, if you can list the property name that it's related to, that would be helpful. So that way, if someone has a question or comment that, for something, later in the agenda item, we can you can go ahead and enter that, but then we'll at least be able to get to it, when we take the questions. Any other questions from anybody? Otherwise, we'll move on. We'll go on to new business, and it's 27 Covington Lane. The petition type is a site plan review. The description is a request for setback variation along the west side property line for driveway. Petitioner is Ross Richardson with Pointer Landscape. Property owner is Cynthia Marfisi. Sorry if I pronounced that wrong. I apologize. Okay, Jonathan?
Hi, good evening to the members of the Planning Community Design Commission. My name is Jonathan Roper, the city planner with the City of Olivet here. This is the first of the 4 petitions that we have this evening. It's the driveway, the off-street parking setback variation process. It's a site plan review. This property at 27 Covington Road, their existing driveway, which is on the west side, or if you're looking at the screen, the street there is actually going, the street's on the north side of the property, so the west is actually on the top side there. You see where the driveway is and that arrow pointing. The current driveway encroaches just a little bit, about no more than a few feet onto the neighboring property. The current driveway is really not harming anything. It's just on the neighboring property. So with the house was bought, I believe it was earlier this year, and the homeowners, they're actually doing a few improvements to the lot, including new decks in the rear, which did not require, under the new PCDC guidance with the accessory structures, the decks do not require PCDC approval, as long as they fit a parameter, so they do. They're also adding a stormwater detention to the site as well, to take in some water from the impervious surface areas on this. But getting back to the what we're here for tonight on this plan, and I just wanted to mention that because there's a lot going on in the site plan, but what PCDC needs to review is the driveway variance. Currently, they do encroach onto the neighboring property. They also they are within the 5-foot setback area for an off-street parking area. So by code, any off-street parking area needs about 10 feet in width and also 5 feet from the side or rear property line. In this case, in shrinking or putting the and removing that encroachment, they're narrowing their driveway, so they'll actually be less than 10 feet in width. They're actually around like an inch or two short of the 10 feet in width. So they're looking for a variation on the width. Also, they're looking on a variation for the setback. So they're going from encroaching a few feet onto the neighboring property to being a few inches to up to a foot off the property line at this point. But in ripping that out and replacing it, staff they can't do that administratively, and they need the commission approval for that. In review of do they have enough room to get the 10 feet and the 10 feet in width and the 5-foot setback? They have an air conditioning unit and a few other things between the current driveway and the house. So they're saying it's impractical for them to actually move the driveway any forward. And looking at the, we can go to the next slide, please. Don't think I have control, Carlos. When we consider the off-street parking variances, we look at the practical difficulties or the hardships that in accepting a hardship, they need to create conditions of safety for both pedestrians and vehicles. And this, don't really see an issue with pedestrians at this point. As far as narrowing the driveway, it's shy by about 2 feet.
Jonathan, Brad's having a little trouble seeing the slides. And I'm not sure if what we're seeing, but are we still on the first slide where that section 400 is?
That's the one we're on.
Okay, Brad, can you see that?
I just see a giant blank black square underneath the panel faces. I don't have anything.
Who else? Does anyone else see just all black?
I can see the picture 2017 Covington Meadows on my screen.
Hey, Brad, at the bottom, do you see a button that says share screen?
Yeah.
Is it highlighted green right now?
Yes.
Okay. Is your
It says
screen?
I cannot start share screen while the other participant is sharing.
Yeah, never mind. I'm sorry about that. Don't worry about that one. Did you see anything all this time?
Nope.
You think he's just seeing the screen with the participants and not seeing the other screen with the video presentation? And I'm wondering if he should just try minimizing, put it like the hide the thumbnail video screen.
Yeah, if Brad at the bottom, like where your taskbar is, like your main computer, if you hit, can you hit zoom on your main, the zoom icon?
Yeah.
Okay, and does that open up any other windows or no?
No, it opens up the one with everybody's faces on top and the giant black box underneath.
There was a question asked whether you're using a dual monitor by one of the people on our participant. Are you?
No, I'm on one computer.
Okay.
Well, anyways, if it's just me, continue on and I'll follow along.
Do you want to try log back in?
Sure.
Okay, and I just lost your faces. Okay. Carlos, am I controlling your screen right now?
Somebody is.
Yes, you are, but
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, great. Okay. I'm sorry, I was flipping through. So, sorry, I just lost the participants. Brad hasn't made it back. Is he on or did he sign off?
He's still off.
Okay, great. Then should I continue then?
He just jumped in, so I think you can go ahead and continue.
Okay.
Brad, how is it now?
Same issue, but whatever. I'll follow on with my packet. If it's
Okay.
just me, it's just me.
Huh. So at this point, staff we were just going over, don't see really practically getting them 10 feet in width and also removing that full encroachment. So we would rather have the driveway set on the right lot instead of being 10 feet in width and being on two different lots. So this point, Mr. Ross Richardson is on the line or on the Zoom, and he's the petitioner. I don't know if the homeowners are on, but the petitioner is on to answer any questions or comments you have at this point, and that was staff's presentations thus far.
I just have one question, and it looks like there's where the air conditioner and the window well, that's a retaining wall. Is that correct? That's in the gray that's on the drawings?
Yes, yes, they do have a retaining wall over there too.
Okay. That's what I thought.
Aaron,
Yeah, go ahead, Carol.
I just want to clarify a couple things. The air conditioner unit could be moved, but the window well and the access is correct. The window well has to stay there. So that's really the big problem. Is that correct?
That's what it looks like.
I mean, so that's the way I would be looking at it, because you could move an air conditioner.
Right. It's the obstacle, that's kind of around that air conditioner and the window well. But yeah, I agree with you.
So because of the way the house is built, and there's a window well right there, it causes the driveway to be narrow if it's going to be on the property in question.
Right.
Okay.
Anybody else have any questions or comments? Do we need to hear from the petitioner, or do I hear a motion?
Chairman, if we can just give a little pause, just in case there is a delay, or right now, of the 10 attendees, I do not see anybody raising their hand or noting or typing in any comments. If we can just give a quick second, then
Oh, I think that's a good idea, and thank you very much.
no problem, sir. And I think I think that was plenty of time.
Okay, great.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead, Carol.
I'd like to make a motion.
Go ahead.
I'd like to motion to approve the petition for site plan to authorize a variance in accordance with section 400.1410A subparagraph 2E, permitting the off-street parking area to contain a 0-foot set.
Somehow, Carol, wait a minute, Carol. If you could, your microphone is muted. And if we could maybe mute Jody, that would be great.
Carol, if you can hear us, your mic's muted.
Okay, I just unmuted me and I can hear you. I can no longer see you. But for the moment, I don't need to see you.
We didn't get through you didn't get through the whole motion before you went muted. So Carlos, I assume she needs to restate it.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, I will restate it. I can hear you, but I cannot see you. Motion to approve the petition for site plan to authorize a variance in accordance with section 400.1410A subparagraph 2E, permitting the off-street parking area to contain a 0-foot setback from the western side of the property line at 27 Covington Road, as presented in the memorandum from the Department of Community Development, Planning and Community Development, dated May 21, 2020, subject to any staff conditions noted therein.
Motion's been made by Carol Wagner. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion's been seconded by Brian Lewis. Carlos, will you please call a roll vote?
Yes. Mr. Lewis,
Aye.
Mr. Abels,
Aye.
Mr. Saunders,
Aye.
Ms. Rich,
Aye.
Ms. Wagner,
Aye.
and Mr. Jurgel.
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously.
All right, great.
Does anyone have a clue as to why I can't see you all anymore?
I think it's more on the user side. And I would kind of look at the menu section in the bottom. I'm also watching the meeting via phone as a separate, not a staff. And so far, everybody that's talking, their video is popping up, and the slides are working well.
Okay, is there anything I should do differently to perhaps try and get everybody back?
You may want to log out and re-log in.
Oh, hold on real quick. Before you do that, at the top, at the very top center of your screen, do you have a view option?
The view option. Yes.
And then you click that little down arrow and it should
Yes.
say show video panel.
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
Okay, I have,
Was that helpful?
I'm just trying to figure out which one of these.
It should say show video panel. Mine's the third one down.
Let's see,
You can also click on the side-by-side mode if that's
try
helpful.
that.
Oh.
Nope. That didn't do it. Ah, okay. There. I tried a different thing. That worked.
All right, good deal. Okay, we'll move on to item B, 709 Mansfield Drive. Petition type is a site plan, community design, and stormwater management plan review. The description is a 1,458 square foot residential addition. The petitioner is Jim Beletsky with Jim Beletsky Architects. Property owner is Farial and Omar Siddiqui. And I, once again, apologize if I mispronounce the names. Jonathan, are you handling this?
Yes, sir.
Great.
We have a residential addition at 709 Mansfield Drive. So this house, it was built actually about 4 years ago, where it has the main component of a house and then the garage to the right side. And you can kind of see that here, the main part, and then the garage here. What they're looking to do is to add this total 1 story, which has a basement as well. So it does connect into their existing basement, but 1 story with a basement on the left side here. They're looking to, in the review, we look at in community design, the existing materials, the roof line transitions, elevation articulation. And within the guidelines, we do find that there's plenty of articulation. They have breaks in the massing, the roof lines on the top, even the projections, the 2 different walls they have. The materials, they are matching what's existing. So this masonry on the front does match what they have on the garage side and the other side as well. And they also have vinyl siding, which they are matching as well. So staff, as far as the design, except for the one item that staff will bring up, and this will kind of be a little bit of a theme, but usually we have up to no more than, I think we have around 8 inches of, up to 8 inches of foundation exposure on the front. The plans noted no more than 12, and this little area down here where you have grade differences that you'll see later on, staff gets, we want to minimize the concrete foundation exposure. So I don't think there's anything, or on the conditions of approval, I believe one might be just to make sure that we stick with 8. And I think that, I think that's within your staff report. Just make sure that it's limited to 8 and not 12 as the plans noted. Regarding the site plan review, so this house on Mansfield backs up to Old Bottom Elementary, and they are at a higher elevation. So when the house was built, they actually put in a retaining wall to give them a little bit more flat of a backyard area, and actually hopefully also it does control stormwater a little bit more. So right now, can you guys see my mouse moving right now?
Right.
Okay, cool. So right now, if water would come down the hill, it would kind of just, it has this huge, I mean, they have around 40 feet of grass area right here that it can kind of go down to. When they add the addition on, that 40 something foot area shrinks to about 15 feet, which what that does when water comes down this hill back here, it either needs to go, left or right. And so in this case, it has more building to get around at this point. This house is a newer house to the south, and it actually, and looking at their top of foundation and their elevations, staff has less of a concern for the house flooding at this point, but staff just does want to make sure that it's a little less of a consideration, or a little less of an impact, a serious impact on this particular property, but it just might pond between property lines. They are showing that there is some type of swale and berms around here, but at this point, if it's not impacting the actual house itself, that's where staff kind of, we're about protecting the house and the improvements. That's the first priority, and then the second would be if there's a low spot in the yard, to maybe take a look at that. In this particular case, it's more of a low spot in the yard, and staff doesn't believe, due to the height of both homes, that it will be detrimental to the house. They also are adding a stormwater, extending the current stormwater detention in the front yard. So they fulfill that stormwater requirement. And at this point, the petitioner is on this evening, and staff is looking at approval with the note about that foundation exposure. And I honestly don't think they're going to go over it, but they mentioned 12 inches on the plan. We want to make sure that we limit it at 8. It's not that big of a deal on that one. Stormwater concerns, we do want to just note that there is the possibility of a little bit of constricting stormwater in that area. And well, they should be aware of that. And for this one, it's more about just ponding of water in grass versus hopefully not having any harm to a house. But at that point, staff is looking for any questions or comments that the commission may have. So
The only question I have, Jonathan, is do they have an existing, water issue with the existing house with that very steep backyard with trying to control water?
I did not have that. That would have been a great conversation to have with the homeowner themselves. Unfortunately, did not do a site. We've been kind of minimizing travel, so didn't do a site visit. I'm not sure exactly how it is back there. I know that in this particular neighborhood, and also 2 houses down or up from them, they have had issues before. So has staff ever actually had a call about this property? No. Hopefully it's not an issue, but staff does. Sometimes we are extra cautious on things that, makes sense to be an issue. So it might not be an issue at all, maybe. So.
Okay.
Chairman, I'm just noting that I have just added the petitioner to the discussion. So Mr. Valesky, it looks like you should be on.
Right. Can you hear me?
Yes. Your video is closed though, and I'm just making you aware.
Right. I start video maybe. Yeah, there we go.
All right.
Good evening, Commission. Yeah, I'm Jim Bolesky. I'm the architect. You guys were asking about that water movement right here, and I've got a few pictures off to my side right here. What it looks like, well, the neighbor there's got his concrete turnaround and driveway going out to the street, and we got the property line right there. At about 8 feet off of that guy's driveway over here, we've got like there's currently a swale running straight out to that street, so where I'm going with this is the current swale would be maintained even after we add the addition. And so I would anticipate we'd have a very similar flow of water that we currently have out towards the street from the backyard.
Okay. Jim, has there been any problems with, water coming down that slope impacting the house at all?
No, it's probably really light on the site plan, but there is a retaining wall back there. And
Okay.
And there's a swale at the top of that retaining wall. Like Jonathan said, there's a high point in the backyard, and the water either goes this way around the house or the other way around the house. And no, they really haven't. There's definitely a swale in the backyard, taking the water around, but we're dry in the basement, and I would anticipate being dry even once we add on to it here.
Good. Does anybody else have any questions or comments? Brad, go ahead.
Yeah, we keep talking about stormwater and what a problem it is. And in the meantime, this is a 1,400 square foot addition. That is another house attached to this house. Now, ground is essentially a rain sponge. That's what soaks up the rainwater. I don't know how many hundreds and hundreds of gallons 1,400 square feet can suck up, but they certainly aren't putting in enough detention wells to hold all that water. At some point, we have got to recognize that if we're spending all this time worried about stormwater, then allowing these massive additions to already gigantic homes, it appears to me to be part of the problem. I don't really know that we can say no, but I object to this. It runs counter to everything we've talked about for the last 4 years in terms of stormwater. And I mean, there's just no way to say that we're eliminating 1,400 square feet of rain sponge and there's not going to be an impact. That just, I'm not an expert, but that inherently doesn't flow with me. So that's my objection.
Well, Brad, you do realize that they're adding to the stormwater retention, don't you?
Like I said, how many hundreds of gallons would 1,400 square feet of ground soak up? And are they going to add like 300-400 gallons of retaining wells underneath? I mean, how big are those retaining wells? I mean, can they put in enough retaining wells to compensate for 1,400 square feet of ground? Can they? I don't know.
I think that's the intent, is to capture all of the rainwater off the roof, from, the higher storms. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jonathan.
Yeah, I will give me about 15 seconds so we can kind of go talk through the regulations that we have today. We are talking about stormwater, but partially we can kind of only enforce what we have today. So, but I do hear what you're saying. So I'm going to share two screens real quick. The first is, sorry, just give me 1 second. And I don't share screen. No. Actually, Carlos, you would have to stop sharing your screen. Well, never mind. I'll just give the numbers out. So the original house, which was approved in 2015, had a stormwater detention area of about, and I honestly forget if this was to hold the rooftop or not, but it had around 10 flow wells, and it had a cubic feet of about 150 feet is what I was mentioning. The new one has adds 10 flow wells as well. So it's essentially doubling the size of the detention that was existing is what they're proposing to do. So they are capturing some stormwater on their site. Regarding the footprints and what we allow, so how large a house can be is governed, the lot size being how large a garage, any detached garages or attached garages in the main house can be, is up to the single family zoning district. On a 20,000 square foot lot, they can go, and I think this is over a 20,000 or above square foot lot, someone is allowed to have a lot coverage of, I think it's up to 5,000 square feet or 20% of the lot, whichever one's greater. So they could have up to a 5,000 square foot footprint. Now, with some of these numbers, and looking at the actual, if the whole city, redeveloped with these larger houses tomorrow, are we going to have an issue with how things are going? Honestly, yes, we will. The stormwater plan, we are talking about what that is and what we can do, but understandably, we're still discussing it, and this is a addition that is technically legal under what they have. Like there's side yard setbacks as well. They're building up to the side yard setback, but they are allowed to build up to the rear and the side and the front, so they are within their they're within their capability. There are environmental impacts that we are trying to be aware of more, but they are following, the size is permitted by right. So they do need condition review. This petition technically, it is permitted by right. They are allowed to build here. Now, you could disagree with the design of what they're trying to do, but if there isn't I guess, Carlos, if this is site plan review, they could actually, you could look at the site and find the site can't carry a house this large, but that's where in site plan review, we need to look at how can a lot this, or a addition like this, are there any negative consequences that we need to look at this point regarding this addition, I guess. And that's another area we can look at, but we just can't outright deny a house like this. We would really need to discuss the reasons why, if it's permitted,
That, I guess, would probably be something that's better to, kind of bring up to either change our regulations or discuss when we talk about more of the stormwater issues. But, that I don't see anything we can do about it now. And I'm not opposed to it right now by myself. So anybody else have any questions or comments?
Chairman, I asked if we can, if just on the public side, if you can just give a minute just for that opportunity.
Absolutely. I appreciate it again.
And I don't see any hands raised or any questions forwarded.
Go ahead, Jonathan.
One more thing, just because I forgot to note this. So in the discussion with this, I don't know if you already noticed, if you can go back to the design, Carlos, real quick, or unless I can. There we go. So this technically is by design, with the petitioner, we had the discussion about what this is being used for. Technically, it is like a mother-in-law suite. Traditionally, when you talk about mother-in-law suites, those are like a detached building that has, full kitchen or kitchenette or whatever like that. Olivet really doesn't, we allow detached structures, but would something like this, if it were detached, and it did not come in detached, by the way, but if it were detached, we probably wouldn't allow a second house on a lot at this point with our zoning code, only an accessory structure building. Staff viewed it as, although this technically does have two front doors per se, staff viewed this as, if it's attached to the house, and as you can access the other side of the house via the interior, via two doors through the basement and also on the first floor, that it actually is a part of the house, not a separate building, although it has a second front door. Also, looking at the design, and does it actually balance out and make sense to what that design is. So on this particular instance right here, you have a two-story main part, and then you have one side and another side. So that's where staff's decision was. This house, according to the design guidelines, what was appropriate for those. That's the last thing I'll say about that.
Okay. Carlos, do we have any other public comments or anything?
No, none that are listed as of yet.
Okay. Does anybody else on the commission have any questions or comments? Do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion. This is Saunders.
Go ahead.
Motion to approve the petition for community design, site plan, and concept stormwater management plan review for a residential addition at 709 Mansfield Drive as presented in the memorandum of the Department of Planning and Community Development dated May 21st, 2020, subject to any staff conditions noted herein, including the limitation of exposed foundation to 8 inches.
Motion's been made by Michael Saunders. Do I hear a second?
Chairman, I'll second.
Motion's been seconded by Carol Wagner. Carlos, will you please call the roll vote?
Mr. Lewis,
Aye.
Mr. Abels,
No.
Mr. Saunders,
Aye.
Ms. Rich,
Aye.
Ms. Wagner,
Aye.
and Mr. Jurgel.
Aye.
And the motion passes unanimously, 5-1.
Not unanimously, just 5-1.
By majority, 5-1, I'm sorry.
Yes, yes. Okay, great. So let's move on to the next item, which is item C 449. Oh, by the way, Jim, thanks for participating. Item C 449, Bowood Court. Petition type is community design and concept stormwater management plan review for a new single-family home. The petitioner is Helmut Weber with Helmut Weber Construction Company. Property owner is Helmut Weber Construction Company. Jonathan? Jonathan, you're muted. I'm not sure.
Thank you, Chairman. This is the first of the 2 new homes we have this evening. This one requires at 449 Bowood Court. It requires a community design review and concept stormwater management plan review as the lot size fits the lot size fits what's excuse me, the minimum lot size requirements. So we'll start with the site plan review. The community design review. This house, they'll demolish and build a new 2-story home with a 3-car side entry garage. In review of the guidelines, staff finds that the principle for the garages, what the guideline states, any projection over 15 feet from a garage portion should be minimized or discourages that. This projection is greater than 15 feet. From the front, like the flat version, you really can't tell, but staff's larger concerns were, should we go to the next one, that as you drive down the street, you hit a lot more garage before you hit a real house. So this example of this is literally the neighbor next door. The other house is right here. So this is the existing house to the north. You really don't, you do see the front a lot, but you also see a lot of garage door and you lose a lot of the house. And there are other things, to consider. This is a house on a different street within all of that has the same kind of issue, and they use the wing wall here to kind of minimize, at least half of one of the garage doors. But that's one of the items that staff looked at. But staff will note that the house to the north has the same quality to it, so there is a design in the neighborhood that this is already happening, so it wouldn't be I guess out of place, if you would. But the commission still, just because one house did it doesn't mean the new houses have to go with it. The other item that we would have in the community design review, 2 other items. The second one is the the amount of foundation exposure that we're getting on the low side. So on the garage side, it's fine, but when you get to the low side where it starts sloping, what you have at the end of the day are this much more than 8 inches of concrete exposure here. And also you're going to get to the, unless you have a railing here, you could fall off your porch, which is kind of a safety one, which, that's a building code matter, but I wouldn't like it. But we've seen houses that have retaining walls here and that don't. Actually, this was an instance of a house that was approved by the commission with the retaining wall, and then it was decided to be moved later on by the developer, which that was the result. And that's something that staff is bringing up as a design that the commission should be aware of. The final design elements that staff is noting, however, in looking at the overall design and the impact, we'll leave that up to the commission to decide. The north right elevation in the back, so the front's over here. This wall is a 2-story wall that's halfway blank besides these windows here. Although it is a blank wall, staff does look at other things such as like the projection right here of the garage. So it's not an entirely flat elevation because of this garage here. And they also have a nice stone veneer and a masonry garage front. So is it truly a flat area? No. And you can kind of see this other property here that has a flat area in the back. So you can kind of see what that looks like, but the staff's role to bring it up to you guys. That's on the design. Regarding the site, the high side is where the driveway is on the north side here. Existing, they have, their house is in a similar layout and format to what they're proposing. The driveway's on this side as well. There is an existing in-ground pool here, and that is also supported by a retaining wall. So they're proposed to remove the pool and to put their stormwater detention in its place, where that also pipes out and goes west, which is where water does go. Water kind of exits the site in this corner here in the southwest and the southeast here, actually in 2 different drainage sheds. And also you might have noted in your staff reports that staff did add more stormwater drainage sheds and all that to your report as well. Basically, the concern, though, at this point, it's not for the house, but it's the impact to the house to the south, which when you look at the grades that, a new house usually get a taller top foundation and it slopes down. So they have it just kind of sloping down. They are showing a bit of a swale, but it's hard to know the effectiveness of what's on paper versus with these contours versus what's actually built. Because at the end of the day, although the engineer puts it together and it looks really nice on paper, can the contractor in the field actually do it like that? So that's really always the staff's concern on that. But with that said, staff, there's discussion about, is the garage how it is fine, that the garage, it does project. There is a little bit of limited, we want to limit that foundation exposure on this side, on the south side here. And that's really about the discussion. If Carl, you have anything else to add, but otherwise open for questions or comments, and the petitioner is here this evening. So I'll switch him over.
Well, I guess what do we want to take on first? Anybody want to jump in here?
I got 2 questions, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Mike.
So Jonathan, I'm having a hard time understanding your concern regarding the front elevation and the fall off at the porch, because it looks like it's a flat elevation across the front, except at least the way it's drawn, except at the very corner, and then the side elevation that you're talking about with exposure, that's also where the foundation and the windows and the egress window are put. So what do you? I'm struggling to understand your concerns with the exposed foundation across the front.
So the one I have on the screen right now, that will not be, that grading on the screen right now is not accurate as the front elevation that you see here today. The elevation will be closer to what you see on the bottom here, where it would actually, you have a major drop. So on the garage side, you really don't have it, but on this side, you're going to have some concrete exposure on this side right here. That would probably look even, it might look a little bit more so than that picture. This is what it would resemble, but it might be worse or better.
Is
But
that
it's not near the porch. Yeah, it's in the corner, not the front porch is what you're saying. Yeah, okay.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Oh,
Yeah.
I got you.
So wouldn't they just drop down the siding or the brick?
I'm not sure.
Can comment on that.
Yeah, and the petitioner is here right now. Mr. Meeks is on. If you want him to talk to him.
Yeah, I think so. If he can answer that question, I think it'd be great.
Sorry, I lost my connection for a minute.
We can hear you now.
Okay. So I did discuss her to brick or stone ledge on that corner, and you know, as far down as is required, and it would step down according to the match the grade, and then connect around the side of the house.
I'm sorry. I don't know if I'm the only one. Ryan, could you literally repeat all that? I don't know if anyone else just literally went out.
Okay, yeah, I think my connection is breaking up. Mr. Weber, the developer, would prefer to extend a brick or stone ledge at that corner, and it would step down along with the grade and then tie it around on the side of the house.
Okay, I think that's good. Does that help, Mike and Jonathan?
Yeah, I think I can't speak for Jonathan, but I think that addresses the concern that I understand Jonathan was trying to convey to us.
Right.
Yeah, so.
Mr. Chairman?
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Jonathan, reading the letters, it looked like there was, you know, from the designer, there was a concern around, you know, you mentioned the concern around the garage, seeing more garage when you're driving down the street, and not really the design principles we're looking for. It looked like in the letter they were concerned with putting the design on the opposite end because the sloping. I'm curious how does staff feel about that, or they think it could go there, or you know, what options are there for that?
So I guess, well, for one, what we don't want to be in conflict with developers on things that they all say make sense. Usually developers put the garage on the high side, so we're not in conflict with moving the garage from one side to the other. Honestly, for any house, it is the design it's the developer's the one who kind of needs to look at the guidelines to see what would or would not be approved before they go selling a house, let's just say. Because if they sold something and it wouldn't pass Pcdc and it didn't comply with anything, but they still sold it, you know, they would, it's up to them to kind of look at these guidelines. With this particular design and what, you know, the footprint of the house and that design, we've seen this house in this, not this exact house, but we've seen a 3-car garage that projects like this before. I would say this, a lot of times the house might be so large that, although the garage is a big piece of it, that the house might be even larger. And this might be the case where the house might be, you know, tall enough that it might lessen the impact of that garage. I would say at the end of the day, really, there are guidelines that staff has. It says protrusions of 15 feet or more need to be noted to the commission. This has been. Staff also, in this particular case, just gave you the information regarding how, what else is out there, especially on the same street, which is this house here. What does that look like, So at the end of the day with these guidelines, staff isn't stuck on the guidelines, but it's, do we get a good product at the end of the day on it? So the guidelines, if something doesn't comply, it might be a beautiful house that doesn't comply to guidelines. You could still approve it, but at the end of the day, the worry is to make sure you have a good product. They do have a little bit of masonry on the front of the garage, so it is less of a concern that you have these, a white vinyl siding with a white vinyl garage, or that garage door. This might be a little bit more, the articulation on there is a little bit more, so that does lower staff's concerns, but ultimately it's not me deciding, it's the commission. So
No, and that makes sense. I guess I'm looking for input because it kind of goes to the trying to keep the design principles. So I was just kind of curious what staff's opinion was in terms of, I know that we ultimately will decide, but just kind of curious if this is something that concerns you in the longer run, or, not just this one house. But I'm hearing, but I guess I understand. So,
I mean, if we could have, if the front building plane was more house, then you have this garage projection. There's something I prefer, but at the end of the day, this is the footprint before us, and we're probably going to see more. I didn't think about it as far as, is this going to be an issue for all of it? I have not thought about that yet. So.
Any other commission members have any issues or concerns with projection of the garage?
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead, Carol.
This is a side projection garage, so at least it's not jutting out in front, which I just wanted to point that out. I have mixed feelings about it, but it does, at least it is on the side, not the front. But I'm more concerned with the garage in combination with that wall, which is mostly just a blank wall, except for that one window right by the garage. And otherwise, it's pretty much blank space throughout the side there. So you're getting not only the garage projection, but a mostly flat wall. And I'm just wondering, visually, if there's something that the developer might do there to add another window in the opposite corner, or I'm not a designer, so I couldn't speculate, but something to add a little more variety to that wall. So at least you're not getting.
It looks like there's a kitchen right on the opposite side. So I'm not sure if there's any upper cabinets that might interfere with that. Maybe Ryan can shed some light on that.
Actually, I would have to consult the architect and or the developer, since that's not really my my area of expertise as far as placing windows. Something that I'd have to talk with them about.
Or if there's something else you could do besides putting in a window, to get that, sort of, so it's not just a blank wall, a little feature or something like that. And is it just that ground floor, Carol, or do you have a concern with the upper floor as well?
To me, it's really both, because it's the window doesn't really diminish the whole rest of the wall, which is flat.
Right.
And I think between the projection, the extensive projection of the garage and then a flat wall. The combination of the two, to me, is kind of off-putting.
Pretty distinct difference.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right. So I would assume that it would be more difficult for them to modify the garage than to add a design element, a window or whatever to that wall. But I think something needs to happen there.
I do like the articulation of the garage itself and the garage doors. I think that's a nice, added, but if they could do something else with that elevation. So Ryan,
I'd love Mike's input here because he's our designer.
he's studying hard. I think he's got a thought.
Well, I'm not sure how, it would be nice to get another window in there. I think the first floor, as Rob said, is all kitchen, so that might be a bit difficult. That doesn't mean you can't sneak one in and around the cabinets. Certainly has been done. It's been done over cabinets. They would be high windows though. And then there's a bedroom in the upper right-hand corner with windows on the back elevation. They could certainly slip another window in on the side elevation. I'm not sure how, I was just looking at the potential street. It is set back and there is a pretty big building, you have to look around to get this. I'm not sure how prevalent it will be when you're driving down the street, quite honestly, that it would overly concern me. It is a side elevation, it is tucked back. We're seeing a view of it that we'll never experience. I'm sure there's going to be some landscaping in that area that will break up some of that wall. But yeah, if the developer would be amenable to adding another window, I think it certainly would help that elevation up in the upper right-hand corner, and you could still furnish that bedroom. So
Makes sense, Mike. Ryan, will you be able to talk to the developer?
Yes, I can talk to him and yeah, see if he's amenable to that.
Okay,
Adding a window there on the second floor.
great. Does anybody else have any questions or comments right now regarding this?
Chairman, I do have some questions from the public.
Okay, good.
And it was the gentleman who lives south of the subject property at 441 Bullwood Court. He has 3 questions. I think it'd be more effective if I could put him on audio to kind of go over. One question is regarding to code enforcement regarding the blocking of the street, nails being tidy and such, and those are enforcement issues through the building department, not anything that the commission has any purview. But we appreciate the comments, and I wanted to make you aware of those items, and we'll follow up on those. The second was regarding concerns about outdoor lighting and some thoughts or suggestions regarding restrictions on outdoor lighting. The city of Olivet does not have any prohibitions on outdoor lighting, and there are some requirements, but I'm not necessarily sure that it's going to fully address this issue. But it's a good point to bring up to the commission in there. But again, it's not anything tied to the review for new construction or design. And finally, he does have some concerns regarding the placement of the dry well and all that. And the neighbor is Mr. Brooks. And if it's okay, Chairman, if I can put him on audio.
That'd be great.
Mr. Brooks.
Yeah, hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Oh, good, because I'm avoiding using the audio on my computer. So yeah, basically I had 3 concerns that you covered pretty succinctly. My final concern regards the location of the dry well. Seems to me that it's located next to an elevation change when it might be more appropriate to put it on more level ground. And, I don't know about the costs and things of that nature, but it seems that they could put it in the northwest corner with no change in piping or excavation costs.
I think the intent is to put it where the pool is going to be filled in. Is that correct?
It's filled in already, so they're going to have to dig it out again.
Oh, okay. Okay. That's interesting. Jonathan, any thoughts or comments on that?
Regarding where the detention is, so one thing to look at, you are putting detention. Usually the areas around detention is normally soggier because it is holding stormwater. The entire roof area is going into one area. The area is used to holding water, of course, as a pool was there, but it's a different type of thing. But there are, for any detention system, putting that amount of water into one detention area is a concern from the point that that's a lot of water on one residential lot, versus, a big commercial site. Behind the scenes, we talked about splitting detention areas. So you have these smaller areas. So that's one thing that staff did look at on there. But another portion on it is the location and what the impact is to neighboring properties and improvements. So in this particular case, the stormwater detention, the location itself is higher than the neighboring house to the south. The corner elevation noted on the plans is 687.85. The stormwater detention, it's at a 690. It's going to have at least a foot of soil on top, around a foot of soil. So, and it's at least 3 feet deep. So it's going to be around a 685. So the bottom of that is going to be lower than the footprint of the house. Can water migrate over to the house and touch the foundation? The rule of thumb has been at least 10 feet from a house. If you're uphill from the house, give it an extra 5 feet, so 15 feet from the house if it's uphill. Those are in tight situations. If you can do a lot more, then please do. So in this case, is it a concern? According to the specs that we have been following, it's not an issue, and that's what we're going with. But would it be more advantageous to move it to the northwest corner? Yeah, it would be further away from the neighboring house. It would. So would it protect that house more? So yeah, it would. But that's really all I can, the staff report didn't recommend. Could it be further back towards the west, which is towards the left, and have a little less of an impact? Maybe so. The last thing I'll note on that is the overflow is going to the southwest corner. So at least the overflow itself, which is here, will flow here, and that wouldn't actually flow back towards the house at that point. That's what they're indicating, that that would actually just flow downhill.
Jonathan, I didn't see your cursor there to know where you were talking.
Do you see it right now? No.
I don't.
Okay. The bottom left-hand corner, that's where the pop-up is, about 10 feet off the property line. So, oh no, not that one. That's the sump pump. I'm sorry. The go towards the left, Carlos, back here. The back corner. Yeah, there we go. That's the overflow. So that water at that point, should not flow towards the house at that point, and it should flow off the site. So really what we're talking about is water that soaks into the ground, and it could be an issue, to be honest, you know. But we have accepted stormwater detentions that are closer to other houses before, honestly. But now's the time to talk about it, to be honest. So,
Well, can you still hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So you know what I noticed about the elevations is at the bottom of that dry well, at least the bottom of the plastic part, is roughly the same level as the middle of my backyard. You know, my concern is the water will flow sideways downhill and make my yard a swamp.
that is a true possibility. I'm with you on that. Yeah, that is a possibility. If I mean, and Ryan is with THG here, and he is one of the site designers. If that is a concern, one improvement that could happen is if you did have some type of French drain, that you had a second system where if water were migrating, because I do agree that that could happen, that you actually have a French drain that takes it away from your yard completely. So maybe that drain goes to the
front of the house?
What? I'm sorry.
To the front of the house?
Possibly. Their swale starts back at the midpoint of the detention, south of the detention, that goes all the way towards the front. So if you were to have a French drain that ran just south of that detention area, you could possibly pick up that sogginess that would migrate south, and that could dump out towards the front, which would be well away from the gentleman's house there.
What about just moving the pop-up towards the front?
It's not, it's also about the pop-up. It's more about the detention.
That releases water into the ground.
Yes,
Around.
sir.
Okay, I get it. Ryan, do you have
I think the
any?
no-cost option, in my opinion, is just located in the northwest corner, because they're going to have to excavate again. There was a swimming pool where it is on the plan, but that was filled in when they demolished the house. So they're going to have to dig a hole. The distance from one corner to the next corner, you know, the amount of piping to me looks equivalent. And if you put in a northwest corner, you don't have that 3, 4, 5 foot elevation.
Right. Ryan, was this something that's in your scope or in your area of expertise?
Yeah. Actually, the problem with moving it to the northwest corner is that then the detention area would be at a higher elevation than the southeast corner of the house, or the southwest corner of the house. So that's why we generally will put the detention areas in the low part of the backyard, so that we can drain all of the roof downspouts to the detention area.
Ryan?
In that case, couldn't the detention area be located at the southeast corner of the property towards the street side, or break the detention to two zones?
And the southeast corner, it's quite a bit less flat. There's a grade going down to that corner. So that would, we talked about having it in a somewhat flat area. That would make it more difficult. And I mean, breaking it up into two detention areas is going to add extra cost as far as piping and excavating another detention area.
Could it
What
just be
about-
moved a few feet to the north?
Yeah, we could move it a little bit to the north. Something that I would have to look at. I'm not sure exactly right now how far we'd be able to move it.
Yeah, honestly, the elevations listed on the plan are kind of moot right now because it has all changed a bit. With they moved around a lot of dirt to fill that swim with it. So
Right, right.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, go ahead, Carol.
I can no longer hear Fred Brooks.
Fred's volume definitely decreased. So Fred, I'm not sure if you could speak up again and maybe repeat your last comment. That'd be great.
Oh, I was just going to say that the elevations on the original plans probably aren't accurate anymore. With the demolition and the filling of that swimming pool, they pushed a lot of dirt around. So some of my concerns may not be valid anymore because maybe the water will flow to the north. But on the original plans, it looks to me like water could potentially flow into my backyard.
Right, right. No, we understand your concern. So I think what we'll
Chairman?
need to, go ahead, Carol.
It appears to me that Mr. Brooks' concerns need further examination, as does the design issues we talked about a little bit earlier. And
Agreed.
so I would suggest that the petitioner go back and possibly meet with Mr. Brooks and staff and see how we could better resolve these water issues, and then talk to the client about some of the design issues that we brought up, and then bring the petition back.
I think that's a great idea. I just wanted to make sure that we had all the comments. So we address everything, so they'll be ready to go when they come back. But I definitely agree. That being said, does anybody else have any questions or comments about any aspects?
I just wanted to say, as far as water flowing laterally, the water is going to go where there's least resistance. So rather than flowing through compacted soil, soil that's been there in that condition for a long time on property, the water is going to flow back up through the rock, through the pipes. And that's the way that the system is designed.
Right, right. When you backfilled the pool, was that compacted back in?
I don't know that actually, whether or not that was compacted.
Not officially compacted. I mean, it was compacted by the weight of the equipment.
Right, but the area where the detention will go that dirt will have to be removed anyway.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not so concerned about it that I want to cause a lot of extra hassle. But if it could be moved a little bit to the north, to a little bit more of a buffer, I'm just, like I said, worried that the elevation change is rapid enough with some of the water going up towards the top of my yard rather than the bottom.
Understood. Understood. Okay. That being said, I think we will probably table this item to have Ryan go back and meet with the developer, kind of discuss some of these concerns and issues, and see if we can get it back on the agenda item for the next meeting. Does that sound all right, Ryan?
Yeah, that should be fine.
Okay, great, great. All right. That being said, I think we'll move on to the next item. Unless Carlos, are there any other comments?
No, sir, not any others that have been posted regarding this item as of yet.
Great, great. Well, thanks, Ryan, and thanks, Fred. Appreciate your time and your comments. Okay, with that, we'll move on to item D, which is 1152 Hilltop Drive. The petition type is a site plan, community design, and concept stormwater management plan review for a new single-family home. The petitioner is Andy Cohen with Kennerly Custom Homes. Property owner is 4M Real Estate Investments, LLC. Is this Jonathan or Carlos?
I'm handing it over to Jonathan here.
All right, good, good.
And Carlos, the screen is not, I don't know if I have control anymore.
No, not yet. Bear with me 1 second
Oh.
here. As I'm trying to get that coordinated. You should have it back, Jonathan.
Anyone see a mouse moving?
Mm-mm. Okay.
I do not.
Okay, sir.
Mouse moving
I don't see anything.
at the top? Nothing.
I don't see a mouse, but this is the first time all night I've seen anything on the screen. So that's
Oh,
good.
awesome.
I just saw a mouse movement, so
Right now?
things are turning up and glad
I see a
Brad
mouse.
could be-
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry, Brad. I didn't mention you. Because someone else was talking. I did send the PCDC, the PowerPoint packet, a PDF to your email. I do apologize. I should have said that a while ago. But so you can follow along. I apologize for that. This last petition that we had, the second of the two new houses we have, is 1152 Hilltop Drive. It is a site plan review as well as a concept stormwater and a community design review due to the lot size. It has about like about a five or 6 foot setback, so this is as tiny as normally our houses or lots kind of get and all of that. Actually, a little bit smaller than a harvester or cherry tree. So. So for the community design review, staff finds that it is a front entry garage. On these particular sites, there's less room. So if you're getting a new house, you're probably going to see a front entry garage. It does not protrude more so than the front porch, so it's basically pretty leveled with the front of the house, proposed house. What staff does find in conflict with the guidelines, the amount of material, the amount of masonry on the front, the guidelines calls for 50% masonry or brick on the front. And then also on the sides for that masonry to wrap around to the side elevations at least 5 feet or to the nearest break. So staff finds in the material guidelines that it does not meet the material standards. For elevation articulation, staff looks at there are 2 components on the sides that are a little bit has less architectural interest, being the lower side on the left side here, and then the upper second story on the right side. Staff also switching to the site. One of the design components that it's the same picture that we had on the last, and the same concern is the amount of exposure that is here on the front here. You could see the same thing happen with the other one as well. Also regarding the site, staff is looking at how water, stormwater flows around the site. So I want to take a note for this particular site. Has a retaining wall on the high side. So this left side here is higher, this right side's lower, and water travels from left to right. So they actually have a retaining wall here, which I believe, and the petitioner is here this evening, but I believe that retaining wall was actually put in. There's a driveway that has it retains the base of the driveway, so I believe that was the point of the retaining wall. However, if you can actually take a look at to see how flat this area becomes, so it actually does good to control stormwater with that retaining wall. So staff, notes what would happen if we started putting, and I don't mean just on this one, but using retaining walls on the lower side as well to flatten out a lot. So with the grading, staff is looking at not only a swale, there's a swale in the back. Staff is looking at the location and where this actually, where the low point of the swale is and where it lets out is around, here, which is in the middle of this person's backyard. Could the swale actually let out further in the back of the yard so that when stormwater, runs off the patio, runs off here, it's just not kind of dumping in the middle of this person's yard where they have a deck and a window well to their basement, but rather can they, dump back kind of back here in this area, so it's a lot further from the house. Between the two houses, there's around 10 feet. There's around five feet for grading. Staff's, never any concern is about stormwater and getting water out of that area, so it doesn't flow into the neighbor and negatively impact them. And with that said, at this point, we have discussion for the use of materials, the site elevations, this swale in the back, and anything regarding the grading and stormwater at this point. And I also will mention their stormwater retention is in the back here, just to point that out. That release is in the front right here. With the staff is open to answer any questions or comments the commission may have.
Well, Jonathan, I definitely agree with you about that rear yard swale, trying to move that back. I think that makes a lot of sense. And I understand your concern too with, if we have that front porch issue. But I can't tell, is that really gonna be a front porch issue or is that a siding issue with the foundation being exposed?
This particular one says it says porch here. So I think this one is actually a porch this time and not, it's not siding. I don't think on the side, they could bring the siding down on the side, so that's less of a concern, but it's really just on this. I believe the porch would look similar, well, not the top of it, but the length of it would look similar to what you see in that picture over here.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And then, I definitely understand the concerns about the moving the water, with those, narrow space between the different property lines in the house. That seems like that could be a potential problem. Has our consultant, offered any ideas or suggestions, about, these particular areas, what could be done?
I did not directly ask them about that, so I would have to get back to you on that one.
Okay. Those are my comments. Does anybody else have any comments?
Hey, Carlos, this is Mike Saunders. These concerns about just complying with our guidelines, have you discussed this with the developer? And I know he's here, but I wanted to ask before he gets on the line, whether you've had these discussions and this conversation with him and raised these concerns to him.
Yeah, they're initially noted in a staff letter directly to the developer. And again, we on the staff end, we just note that based on the guidelines, whether they're consistent or not, so they can be prepared to address, the commission on those. So we don't take it that it's a has to, you have to do it this way. It's just these are inconsistent. Therefore, be prepared for a discussion.
Got it. Okay, thanks. That was my understanding. I just wanted to confirm it. Thanks.
In no way is staff trying to say that you have to conform to the guidelines. we encourage them to think it out and then be able to address that and to be prepared to address it before the commission.
Mike, I'm going to ask you a question, and it's going to be about the side elevations. You know, if, you know, I know I forgot what streets we were looking at where we had similar narrow properties without much, you know, without many windows. And, you know, I mean, I think the difficulty is just because you put a window there, it's like nobody's going to be able to really see it with that narrow section. I'm just not sure. Do you agree with that?
Well, I do to some extent. I think windows on side elevations and something like this towards the front corner, you know, like we talked about in the last example. So you see it driving down the street might have some impact. But just putting windows on side elevations when you're, you know, you're looking out that window and you're seeing a building 10 feet away from you, or, you know, so it's maybe letting a little bit light, you do get into some privacy issues when you have windows, you know, on both elevations maybe. Could get a little bit awkward, but I think there is some merit to considering, you know, near the front corners where you can see them coming down the street. So I don't know if that makes sense or answers your question, but
No, that makes a lot of sense, and that answers my question. So.
Yeah.
Anybody else have any questions, comments before we bring in the developer?
One more, Chairman.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just to disclosure of history on not just this property. So there was a similar design from this petitioner that was approved by Pcdc last year, and so their Pcdc, the commission did approve a design that the difference on the design, generally speaking, the commission put a condition of approval that had the this brick face along the garage to go up to around where the door is here. And otherwise, I believe the house looked very similar to what you're seeing today that was approved at 1132 Hilltop that just finished building about like last month. So just to let you know, that's how the commission handle the house like this, just so you're aware of what you did approve in the past. But although you did approve it, but
did we approve it going up to the top of the doors? I thought we approved. Didn't it go all the way up to underneath the eaves, or was it just to the top of the door? I thought it went all the way up to the under.
Carlos, do you want me to jump in?
Yeah,
I would have to relook at that honestly, but there was more brick there. So
yeah, I remember that. All right.
Did we wrap it on that other property?
I don't believe so. I don't believe so. No.
Carlos, you want me to answer anything, or can you not hear me?
Nope. And Andy, Andy Cohen, the petitioner, is on right now.
Go ahead, Andy.
Hey there. Can you guys hear me or no?
We can.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. I don't know if I could get the video to work. Let's see, what am I doing wrong here? Start my video.
Oh, there you are.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, I just thought I'd, hi, nice to see you guys. I thought I'd try to answer some of the questions that that Mike and the chairman and Carlos and Jonathan brought up, if I could, as far as the exterior materials, if that's what you guys would like me to speak to, possibly.
Yeah, it'd be great.
Yeah, so Jonathan is sort of on the right track. So last June, July, you guys had approved the same exact home, actually, but it was a right-handed versus a left-handed garage at 1111 Collingwood, with the same amount of masonry and the same amount of siding. Then a few months later at 1132 Hilltop, you approved a similar design, and Mike is good on his memory. We went ahead and ran the brick up on both sides of the garage door on the front elevation, and then the rendering had a 7-foot garage door that you see, so we changed it to an 8-foot, so it closed the gap underneath the eave. So the door got taller, you had more glass, and you had brick on the left and the right. at 1132 Hilltop. The design was pretty close, but there was some, the elevation itself was different. But for the purposes of what you're asking about, you're correct. The one note that I think is worth mentioning about the drainage, and Jonathan and I have talked about it. The pop-up for this property and then the pop-up for 1132 Hilltop for the discharge is in the front. There's definitely some code. There's either a code issue, guys, or maybe it's a design guideline. But I have no problem as the developer bringing that farther to the street. There's currently no sidewalk installed. I know those are a whole lot of things I just threw at you guys, what you want to take first, but I'm happy to answer anything else I can.
Well, I think one of the issues was the rear swell, in the back, whether that could be pushed back so it didn't impact the home to the right.
Yeah, I think that's obviously I'm not a civil engineer, but I don't think that's going to be an issue to do that since we have the retaining wall on the left, on the north side. It helps flatten it. The neighbors to the right, to the south, their rear yard is fenced. So I don't know how that would impact where their yard, drops, but I'm fine pushing that swale back further if that's going to help the neighbor in their drainage, of course.
Okay, good. What about that porch, with the exposed foundation with the porch?
Yeah, it did come up. There is more exposed foundation at 1111 Collingwood where this plan came from, but this is mirrored. Do you think that, what are you thinking that you would prefer to see versus the foundation? Is it, if it were painted with an exterior paint? Is it brick? Is it, I think a hardscape material makes more sense. I don't love the idea of the retaining wall because then it's going to push a landscaping area out into the front yard where the front yard itself is partially limited just because of the setback. I'm open to what you guys think.
I think I would defer to Mike on that if you have any thoughts on it.
I was wondering, would it be possible just to push the grade up there and just sort of put a planting bed or something along the front edge of there just to reduce the amount of that?
Yeah. As far as you mean like adding more landscaping and doing something more increased. Yeah, that'd be completely fine.
Yeah.
That's what I ended up doing it on Collingwood, where we did have more exposed than I felt that I would have liked. We added some small bushes and shrubs in front of it.
Yeah, I mean, I'd start with trying to get the grade up there as tight as you can, or as high as you can, I'm sorry, and then just, I think some low landscaping along there, Mr. Chairman, would probably work. I quite honestly, and Mr. Cohen sort of touched on it, I struggle more with that garage door and the proportion of the garage doors. That seems a little awkward. That's why we added a foot to it last time. And getting that brick up, I think that's gonna help that front elevation a whole lot more than a little bit of concrete on the right side, and the concrete can be alleviated with some landscaping. So.
Okay. Andy, would you be opposed to doing that around the garage?
I'm always open to conversation. That's always a two-way street. The only thing I want to throw out at there is the home directly to the right, which is 1148 Hilltop, is 100% siding. There's no masonry at all. I want to be a cooperative, proactive portion, individual for the community. I just look at that home and say, well, it's got no masonry at all, even on the front. So that it kind of leaves me with a little bit of like, not a bellyache, but just, it just doesn't seem commensurate with next door. I don't know. What do you understand kind of where I'm coming from on that?
When was that house built?
In
Just
nine,
completed. Oh, it was just completed last year,
The one to the right?
or literally either at the end of last year or the beginning of this year. Last year, end of last year. Jody, correct me if I'm wrong on that, but end of last year.
I think you're right, but that's a single one-story home as well, because we hadn't seen any 2 stories in Hilltop area yet being proposed.
I guess I don't remember that one house coming up. I wonder if I wasn't here, but does anybody else remember that one or the discussion about why it didn't have any masonry?
it snuck in on you, Mr. Chairman.
I could take that one. So we have had, since the guidelines, especially with the 50% masonry guideline, there has been about 2 houses that I could recall off the top of my head, including the one you're mentioning now, 1148, that did not include masonry on it. And in both cases, the developers mentioned that this is, one was a Cape Cod style on crosswinds, and that was the style of the house that he was preferring at the time that didn't have masonry. Same with the other one as well. So it was about the overall design at that point. In the case of the Hilltop one, the one next door, I believe there were, the neighborhood was there, I believe, at that too, and I think they did sign off on it or something like that at the time. But we had, I believe, Carlos, we had some type of subdivision trustee at the time, sign off on it. But it was just the design is what he wanted to go with. So, and the commission accepted that. So,
Okay.
Yeah, if I could weigh in too, I think part of my concern is, it's just the amount of masonry is so limited. We would like to get an impact of it. We're not talking about, a lot. We're talking about 3 by 6 twice. So, 36 square feet of masonry versus siding. But if you're going to do it, at least do enough of it so it does have some impact on the front elevation. I think that's the way I look at it. And I appreciate what you're saying about none, but I think the examples, and I think Jonathan hit it right, was, it was just that particular style of house, whether it was Craftsman or whatever, that, it's not all or nothing. But if we're going to do it, let's do it.
So Mike, are you looking for similar to what you asked for at 1132 Hilltop with a brick on the left and right, and making it as an 8-foot tall?
Yeah. What I struggle with this elevation is really the garage, amount of mass over the top of the garage. That's why we raised the garage door. It's a nice looking garage door. I appreciate that, but it just, looks a little squatty. So yeah, just raising the door up a foot and putting masonry on both sides, I think it helped the elevation quite a bit. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, Carlos, I don't know if it's just my screen, but there's sometimes like a gray blank box that's been coming over lately.
No, I wanted to bring to the commission's attention the design, the streetscape that was submitted for the house to the south, and you can see the consistency of the siding only in there, and that was one of the reasons when the petitioner was here and articulated why they went with that. In this case, Mr. Cohen's introducing some brick in there, and again, I want to recognize that there are just general guidelines. Of 50% is just an arbitrary number that if it doesn't meet 50%, we're supposed to bring to your attention.
It'll still be significantly less than 50%.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Full disclosure, Mike has umpired some of my kids' baseball games. I don't want to get hit with a pitch or a foul errand ball. So, I mean, look, I'm a guy that wants to build a home and get it approved. If that's something Mike, if you think that's something that you would prefer to see, that's what I think we need to do then.
I think it would be an enhancement to the front elevation. I'm only speaking for myself. There are other board members that might disagree with me. I can only speak for myself, but I think it would certainly enhance the elevation. Yes.
Okay. That's let's change. I'll have the plans reflected to say it's an 8-foot door, and then run the masonry up to just at the eaves to the soffit.
So, yeah, we should hear from the other board members. So like I said,
Oh,
it's,
sorry.
I'm just a small voice here, so.
No, I agree with you, Mike. So I mean, I share that comment, and I'm not sure if anybody else does, but if they want to weigh in, go jump right in.
I agree with Mike.
Okay. Okay. What about, do we want to talk about any of the side elevations and see if we can potentially squeeze a window closer to the front of the house?
Is that to me, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, that is to you. Sorry, Andy.
Yeah, so it's okay. Yeah, so in the last two homes that were like this, when the previous chairman had brought up about the lack of articulation, I added two windows to the master bedroom on the left side, which are there now, and then I added the two smaller, sort of like they're two smaller windows on the right side elevation that brought in some light into what's the living room.
Okay.
We didn't add anything. The front, let me get my bearings. On the right elevation, where there is not a window, it's an office there. You know, Mike made a point earlier, which he's correct, in these narrow lots where you only have 5 to 6 feet of setbacks. As you go back, it's so hard to see anything on that. Left side.
Right.
The left side is going to have the kitchen in the rear, and then the garage. Unfortunately, there's probably not a good spot on the left side on the first floor for an additional window. I think the right side would probably warrant to the front a window more, since there is an office there.
If our concern is just simply breaking up the that giant, blank wall instead of a window, I mean, I realize a window doesn't necessarily make sense. Are there some other design elements that you could incorporate that would just give it a little more, I guess, interesting look, which is really what we're going for? Is there what are there any other options?
Yeah, so one of the things that it's tough because the black and white picture doesn't always depict it. Between the first floor and second floor, so the siding's like a light gray color. There's going to be a 12-inch tall white James Hardy band board. One of the things that were suggested in the past was adding a gable vent up higher, even though it is a hip roof, but adding something decorative there, maybe a louver. You could add some shutters to the 40-inch by 40-inch window that's in the stairwell.
Andy, this might sound silly, but we have a Firestone going in that just has some decorative windows on the front. I don't know if that's a practical answer for a home, but I'm just throwing it out there.
You mean like a window? It appears as if it's an exterior, but it's not visible on the inside.
Exactly. And I'm thinking obviously the window isn't practical, but any other kind of design element just to give it a little more feature or something. I don't know what anybody else thinks.
I mean, I guess that's an interesting interesting suggestion.
I don't know if they make them for residential. I think that's more of a commercial, application.
What about, as Mike mentioned, there's, you don't see a lot of the rear because you have these narrowness, but the closer to the front, you might see a little more. So wrapping masonry around the side just a little bit, 2 feet or something like that. I don't know if you're standing at the street, would that break it up a little bit more? Or
I think you'd see this is just my opinion, because I did wrap it around on one of the homes recently that you approved in Indian Meadows. It was a corner lot though. I don't know if wrapping it on the sides, given the tightness of the setbacks, is going to be effective. I feel like a window. I guess really the question is, are we trying to achieve how it looks as you drive by it, or is it more setting a precedent? I'm not sure. I'm open to discussing that, but I don't know what we want to try to achieve by doing it. Is it to meet a guideline, or is it to meet because, oh, there's another window that looks, I'm not sure where we land on that.
Yeah, no, I get it. I almost do like the idea of just wrapping it, around the corner.
So wrap the masonry around the corner a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that would be good. And I'll throw out 2 feet. 3 feet. And anybody have any thoughts on it?
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead, Carol.
I like the idea of wrapping it. Actually, I like it better than the idea of another window.
Yeah, I agree, especially with the distance between the properties and stuff. So.
And I like not having, it's always tough to tell what a buyer is going to do with their furniture. When we stick these windows in from the exterior, it's going to affect the layout on the interior as well.
Right.
Yeah, if you want to, I guess Jonathan or Carla, if you want to, I'll make a note, but if you guys, Carlos, want to make a note that, add, wrap it around 2 feet, is that something that you'd?
I'm good with that.
Okay.
Mike?
Works for me.
Okay. I got a question for you too, and I'm going to throw this out, and it's about those, kind of drainage in between the 2 properties, where it's really difficult to get a swale, in between there.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'm trying to mull over, ideas, and I don't think we necessarily have too much of a problem on the left side, which I believe is the north side, but the south side is what I'm concerned about.
Are you concerned about standing water per se, or just?
Yeah, impacting the neighbor's yard and, stuff like that, with things just moving, over there. And how you go about truly controlling, that water flow.
What I've done in the last few, I don't know if I'd really call it a full swale, but we have created a little bit of a smaller trough in between the property line to the house. The good thing is the downspouts are all picked up underground and then go to the retention and then have the pop-up emitter. So there's not a lot of additional roof or service water coming off in that area. My plan always has been and always will be to consult and try to talk to the neighbor. The good thing is there's a newer home. There's a very active owner that's involved in landscaping and maintenance and taking care of his property. So, I'm happy to talk to him to see what we can do if it needs to be a little bit of a berm to help force water forward or whatever it might need to be.
You think you can get a berm in there?
Maybe when I say a berm, almost more of like a dirt, like an earth type curb to where, the water wouldn't, because the water does stair step down. The lots do stair step down from the north to the south.
Right.
So naturally water is going to go that way. I have to look at their driveway and how the final grade came to be. Since the property we're discussing, since 1152 has been vacant for so long, I'd have to look at to see what the grade is, the proposed versus what the existing is in relation to their property. But I think that there's room to do something to that.
And I wasn't sure if that's something that a French drain would work out well, that you could help make sure you push it to the front. I don't know. I'm throwing that out as a thought or suggestion. And I also didn't know if, Jonathan, if the consultant that we use, had any thoughts on that.
I could ask him about the French drain and being effective in this area. I mean, my belief is, yeah, Prince Drain, it's really about water. Mr. Code, I think the driveway to the south is, I don't think water would actually run over that driveway because the driveway is a little bit higher. So the driveway is a point that water would just start flowing towards the street at that point.
Right.
But yeah, just moving water, ponding water. The window well is in the back, so window wells in the back on these tighter lots is something we try to practice, just so you don't have water between property and a window well. But nevertheless, it still can affect your sump pump in your basement if it's sitting there. So
I think what probably a good solution is on the last few, Jonathan and Carlos and I, excuse me, as we needed to adjust something with the grade, we did to not affect the neighbors. But most of the time, the neighbors have been really cooperative and helpful. If they've had an issue and I can fix it while I'm there, I have been. And given the fact that it's a newer home, that's an advantage to try to help control any issues.
Right. Jonathan and Carlos, how do you feel about that?
I think it's something worth looking into and having a discussion with the stormwater consultant. And it's something I think we can kind of look at administratively and talk with your engineer too, Mr. Cullen.
Yeah, I think Clay and I could probably, Clay Vance with Vance Engineering and I could probably come up with something. I think Carlos and Jonathan do an amazing job with stormwater management, and I think they can run circles around the consultant. That's my public opinion. That's going to go on the record.
Well, I appreciate that confidence.
The money should start going to the city. Don't pay the consultant. Let Carlos keep it. Just my opinion.
Well, we'll have to work on that.
That sounds good to me.
Does anybody else have any questions or comments, or have we addressed everything? I feel like we have, but I'm looking to see. Anybody? I don't see any questions.
I think I bored them all.
Yeah. And Carlos, I was just checking the questions online, and I don't see anything there.
No. We do have somebody that would like to provide public comment on the city center, but no questions regarding this petition.
Okay, great. Well, why don't we give a moment just in case somebody else has a quick comment at that point in time. Maybe somebody could pop up the motion if anyone desires. Carlos, anybody? You think that's enough time?
Yes, sir. There was no comments.
Okay, great.
And I will note that there was discussion about an additional condition. Whoever makes that motion regarding the brick, I believe.
I think there were a couple. There was the 2 feet to the side of the masonry wraparound. There was is it both increase the height of the garage door and the height of the brick next to it?
Correct.
Okay, yeah.
It was the brick on the sides. It was the 7-foot to an 8-foot door, and then return the masonry 2 feet, I think.
And to try to raise up the
the landscape
around the porch and add the landscaping there.
You got it.
Yeah. Do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion.
All right, good, Mike.
Motion to approve the petition for site plan, community design, and concept stormwater management plan review for a new single-family home at 1152 Hilltop Drive as presented in the memorandum from the Department of Planning and Community Development dated May 21st, 2020, subject to any conditions noted herein, with the additional conditions of the masonry raised on both sides of the garage door, the garage door height raised from 7 to 8 foot, a brick return on the right side of 2 feet,
Remember, he was the
and additional landscaping across the front porch. I think I hit them all, didn't I?
Wasn't it on both sides?
Was there return on both sides?
It
Masonry on both sides? Okay.
Okay, motion's been made by Mike Saunders. Do I hear a second?
Second.
And seconded by Bradley Abel. Carlos, will you please call roll call vote?
So they ask everyone on the council how to make us take a vote.
Commissioner Lewis,
Aye.
Commissioner Abel,
Aye.
Commissioner Saunders,
Aye.
Commissioner Rich,
Aye.
Commissioner Wagner,
Aye.
and Commissioner Jurgel.
Aye.
And the motion passes unanimously.
All right, great.
Nice work. Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
Or not. Maybe they disconnect me.
so we'll move on to discussion items. Or do we want to address that public comment now, Carlos?
I'm looking for some clarification. I think at this point, they've indicated that they can't speak on audio. So just to make everyone aware, I believe you should be able to see the questions and answers. And if you look at, and I'll be glad to read it aloud, Chairman.
That'd be great. That'd be great, Carlos.
It is regarding the city center. If you could bear with me thanks. This is from Ms. Dolick, who lives at the Tower Hill condominiums. Appreciating the discussion regarding the stormwater. She said today it's a 1,400-foot home. This is at the time that we were having conversation regarding the addition at Mansfield. But if she inquired if anyone had seen the plans for the controlling of the stormwater for the block-long city center redevelopment, 4-story apartment building, 3-story, 250-car garage, and commercial area, which will be a block long again and sit above Tower Hill condos and some freeze homes. She noted, and this is hearsay, that a surveyor from the new development told a condo resident that that the garage site, that water would be a major problem. That surveyor disappeared and was replaced, and that person, the replacement surveyor, would not answer questions. And then inquiring when the city center redevelopment would be back on the agenda.
Okay.
So what I will note is that the city center redevelopment has been approved. The expression that the city center property sits higher than Tower Hill is incorrect. That's not factual. The elevations to the west are actually higher. Now, in terms of building height, yes. And the elevations drop from west towards east. So Freese Drive is actually lower than Tower Hill and the development. And secondly, the developer is required to bring back the final landscape plan before the commission but it's not about the approval of the building, or it's just getting consent on the final landscape plan. Be glad to answer any specific questions and also give an opportunity for Ms. Dullock to submit any additional questions that she may have.
And we had a stormwater management review that also went to MSD for that, correct?
That's correct. Ultimately, MSD has jurisdiction on the commercial properties.
And they're doing a retainage, system as well.
Underground, correct.
And where was that going to be located? I remember that discussion on that. Was that going to actually be placed underneath the garage, or somewhere in the parking lot area?
I'll have to look at the plans if you can bear with me 1 second here. Good
No
question.
problem.
And bear with me, it's a large plant set, so it just takes a while for the amount of windows I have open.
No problem.
And then I'll be able to. Okay, it looks like there was going to be an underground detention on the north end of the apartment complex, not the building, not the apartment, not
Not
under
the property.
the garage.
Say that again?
That the location was going to be in that driveway that goes between Freese to the parking structure.
Okay. Okay. Underneath the sidewalk that's going to be there, correct? Okay.
Sharon,
Yeah, go ahead, Carol.
I was wondering if the if the person asking the question is interested, can't they find the site plans and documents that we've approved about this petition online?
Yes.
So it would be under the petition address, is that correct?
It would be under current projects, commercial, and there is a page dedicated to the city center.
I thought
Great.
it might be helpful to point that out.
I think that's great, Carol. I appreciate it. Okay, I think that kind of covers that. I think we'll move on to discussion items. Stormwater management, discussion regarding stormwater management practices.
Jonathan, is there anything you want to fill in for right now? Or I would say
Table that for this week.
Outstanding. Okay, so we'll go to City of Olivet Comprehensive Plan, overview of the 2006 strategic plan, and discuss procedures and schedule for an update.
At this point, given the time, Chairman, I'd ask to defer, and we can have discussion at our June 4th meeting.
Okay, great. No, I think that makes sense. Okay, other business, meeting minutes. I don't believe we were presented with any, so we'll move on from there to reports, and back to you, Carlos.
Oh, I think weren't we emailed some minutes today?
You were, but if you didn't read them,
Okay, we'll just wait it, table
Yeah,
that until
that's
next
fine.
time. Okay, all right.
All right.
Go
Chairman,
ahead.
on a couple of reports, the council will conduct their first June work session on the 2nd, and then their regular meeting dates are June 9th and June 23rd. Our upcoming schedule for commission meetings will be June 4th and June 18th. And then we do have a Thursday, July 2nd in place for the first meeting in July. City events, offices will be closed on Monday, May 25th for observance of Memorial Day. Municipal elections are scheduled for June 2nd. Regarding Prop C and the Prop C meetings, there are 2 more presentations that are left. One is Thursday, May 28th, and the other is on a Monday, June 1st. And those are posted on the website along with the times. Regarding COVID-19 info and updates, we have entered a phased reopening process for the city center. We still are limiting access into the lobby areas and the chambers. We'll continue to follow the county's recommendations on there. We have increased our staffing levels through this process, but we're still trying to rotate and do some, allow some people to work from home during the process. For my department, or at least for planning and building, we're providing full service Monday through Friday. back to our regular schedules from 7:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. So we constantly have a staff member present at the city center through those times. There is a run for frontline. Registrations are still going on. Of course, that is until May 25th. Don't forget the Parks and Recreation Department has put together a virtual community center with a lot of outstanding information on ways just to keep busy through these phase reopenings that we're going through and after the stay-at-home order. And it was a pretty neat site. So if you get a chance, there's a lot of good info on there. Republic Services, of course, they started yard waste pickup at the beginning of May, but next week is bulk pickup week. Of course, because of Memorial Day, everybody's schedule is moved over. So if you have Monday pickup, that's going to be on Tuesday. Tuesday pickup will be on Wednesday, etc. And as of yet, we know that there will be no municipal court scheduled for May, and even June is up in the air as they're waiting for some guidance of how the process will be monitored and controlled in there. They were to start striping on Dillman Road today, but deferred that, and they're going to try again tomorrow. If you haven't seen the new pavement, it looks really nice along with the improvements there. I'll let the council liaison address the 90th anniversary events. I think those are still tentatively still placed on hold, but if there's any specific dates or knowledge, I'll let council liaison Waldman address those. Don't forget 2020 census, just some stats. The Missouri average of responses is at 60.3%. County is at 70.4%, and you can see all of that ahead of the pack at 76.9%. So we're still little less than 24% people that have not replied or submitted their responses for the 2020 census. So urge you, if you haven't or if you know anyone that hasn't, to do so. On the development aspect, the I-170 Gateway development, of course, the demolition of the structures is well advanced and pretty much completed, except for the Office Max structure. They have vacated the building and anticipate demolition of that structure probably by mid-June. Regarding the city center redevelopment area, they're currently working on utility disconnections, the asbestos abatement, and we anticipate that the demolition will start on those 3 buildings by early June, so probably within a week or 2. The Centennial Greenway, we've been working with the Great Rivers Greenway regarding the Worsen Park alignment and how that would be impacted if a new city community center is approved under Prop C, and how that alignment would accommodate for the community center, and then also continuing discussions about the crossing at Hilltop and all that pendant on approval by MoDOT. And again, and I noted before, but just to repeat, that the design will include kind of like a pedestrian refuge island on Olive, right at the intersection of Hilltop, with the intent that it'll be small in comparison in size. It's not for somebody to stop there, but in the case where someone doesn't cross the full street during the signal timing, they'll have an opportunity to stop in the middle of the road. They're also looking at the signal times all along that corridor and adjusting those to give a little bit more time for crossings. Easy storage site work continues. The slowdown has been, they found bad soils more from the structural side, not environmental. And then the architect has had limited access. They're from Michigan, and the stay-at-home orders that have impacted them putting their construction documents together. At the southeast corner of Dillman and Olive, of course, that's the the Firestone development. We have engaged discussions with the landscape architect and finalizing the contract, and having discussions with the representatives of Firestone for their input on that design. and be glad to answer any additional questions. I did reach out to Plant Haven. They hadn't, they've set up the fence up at Bowling Alley, and unfortunately, they were still trying to find a way or figure out how they would do best practices regarding social distancing in the way that configuration in the facility works. So we're still hoping that they'll put up their temporary garden facility there, but it's not looking good. And usually Mother's Day is one of their big events, and unfortunately they missed that window. But again, a lot of it is trying to figure out how they were going to get people to circulate appropriately in there. As we've been going through the phase reopening, my staff, along with the city manager, have been actively engaging with our local businesses, especially small businesses, navigating them through making sure they had access to PPP information from the federal government, and then also the current county grant program. We talked with a lot of businesses directly, making sure that they have information, or they'll give us calls, and then we'll try, they'll ask us questions or inquiries, and then we'll try to ascertain that information, from the county. We've also talked with all the restaurants about trying to accommodate outdoor seating space to make up for some of those losses. And you'll see it already at the Shops at Price Crossing. They've added some additional tables outside. And of course, we've been lenient regarding signage, allowing the banners and information so people know that these businesses are open and operating. And we'll continue to do so. Outside of that, Chairman, if there's any questions, I'll hand it over to the liaison.
I'll just make a note. We do have another comment on the public, but I think we can maybe address that after Missy's report.
All right.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm not going to report much more than what Mr. Trejo reported. I will identify again, take 2 potential dates that we've identified for the celebration of the 90th anniversary of Olivet. At this point in time right now, we have looked at and we have rescheduled the party in the park for August 21st. We have rescheduled the new picture on the history wall at the city center on September 13th. And we have rescheduled the dinner dance on October 24th. That is still to be at the Danforth Center. These things obviously are still a bit fluid, but we're again going back to creating times and dates to move forward and hopefully be able to celebrate the 90th anniversary. We don't know how people will react. We don't know if people will want to be in crowds, but hopefully by this time we'll have a better understanding of what we are all facing in the new normal within our country and the world. So with that, I do hope everyone stays safe, stays healthy, and I will allow this to get back to the final question I saw that's being asked of the body.
Thanks, Missy. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
All right, Carlos, do you want me to read the comment or do you want to?
Yeah, I don't see it. And I'm looking through here.
It's on the chat. At least that's where I pulled it up, I thought.
It's not the question and answer.
I don't believe so.
Okay. No, if you can go ahead. I'm trying to find where that.
Yeah, you're correct. It's in the chat versus Q&A.
Right. So I'll read it. It's they saw the drawings on the website, but it says we're sorry. We think this can be. We don't think this can be solved by looking at the plans. Not even a single picture of the rear. You just made an error when you said, quote, along the sidewalk. The sidewalk is on the south of the complex, not north. We walk up to Olive, so we don't understand your comment that we do not sit below the redevelopment. I believe what I was talking about was, I believe, isn't there a sidewalk that will be in place along the west edge of the property?
Correct. Along the boundaries coming out of the garage and then heading south to the retail area.
Right.
But the detention area I was referring to is in the area on the northern side of the apartment complex where the road connects from Freese to the garage structure.
Oh, okay. Where the dog park used to be.
Correct. In that it's in the paving area goes over that, similar to what we have at Easy Storage.
Okay. Okay. And that's a good clarification, good point. So I appreciate the comment there. Carlos, do you want to, I think she was talking about your comments about, the sitting, below the redevelopment.
Yeah, again, when I look at the county aerials and the contours that are listed in those plans, the west side of the development where the old Jade Gardens are actually lower than the Tower Hill Street, and then the grades drop as you head eastward in there. Now, behind the pool and that area of buildings in Tower Hill, there is an area that drops down and then heads towards the Indian Meadows side. But if there was surface water that would be flowing through, it would be going from west to east. And freeze actually would have a more significant impact on that. However, the detention systems for MSD are designed to pick up, hard surface areas, including the buildings. So they're a little bit more extensive than what we do for a home, which we just pick up the footprint. In their case, it would be picking up the footprint. They're looking at the footprint and all the surface areas like a driveway, sidewalks, and things like that.
Right. Right.
I understand the concern in there, but they're not changing the current flow or direction of stormwater.
Okay, great. Thanks for the clarification and thanks for the comments. And she just replied again, thank you. So hopefully we answered that question. So appreciate it. Okay, that being said, I think any other questions or comments from panelists or anybody out there? I don't see any. So I will call this meeting to close at 9:26 p.m. Thanks.
Thank you. Everybody be safe.